love it when the audience starts coming in before we barely even get started. For those of you that are jumping on, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for supporting Renee and her journey today, speaking to us and the Her Version platform. The Her Version platform is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I am speaking with an amazing woman, Renee Hill. She is married to Tom Hill, and they have 5 phenomenal children and 4 grandchildren. She is an only child to parents who have been married for 52 years. She is a university professor, and her favorite thing to do is read. Renee encourages the people around her to dream and believes you can make your dreams a reality with some planning and pivoting in your life. She is here to share some of her journey and some of her challenges in order to inspire all of us to live our best life. Welcome, Renee.
Thank you. That was awesome.
Yes. How are you today? Thank you so much for joining us on this Thursday.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm great. Today is a
Awesome.
wonderful day. Well, most of the days are wonderful. Yeah.
Awesome. I love that. I just want to acknowledge you really fast. I had a last minute cancellation for my Thursday and was recommended to meet, to link up with this beautiful lady. Had never have met her before. And she so graciously was like, yes, yes, 100%. Let's do it. So I so appreciate women like you who are on board, who understand the mission of what I'm trying to do here with this community, to help inspire, individuals who are going through some stuff right now.
Yep.
Who are going
Can
through some.
can I just say what you just said was really the key for why I said yes, was that when you talk about community, that is so important. I think that not enough people understand or even have the benefit of having a community to support them or that they can just learn from, whether it's directly or indirectly. And I think even like, especially with COVID times, we really have lost a sense of community in some ways because we had to be so isolated. So I am blown away by what you're doing with the
Thank
mission
you.
that you're on. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for saying that. So I would love to kind of jump in and give the floor to you for a few minutes for you to be able to just kind of share a little bit about your background and, your upbringing and where you are now. And then we'll kind of just jump in from there. Is that cool?
Oh, absolutely. Sure.
Awesome.
Okay, background. So I was born in Houston, Texas, but I don't remember anything about it because I think when I was 2 or 3, my parents moved back to Fort Lauderdale, which is where they're from, and where they're both sides of my family just from Fort Lauderdale. They almost no one has ever left, right? So I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I skipped a grade. I went from kindergarten to 2nd grade, and so that meant that I graduated high school at 16 and started college at 16.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, so I share that a lot with people to say that that sounds really good. It wasn't necessarily good for me,
Okay.
right? It and I when I look back and kind of think about some of the issues that I've had over my life, I feel like it kind of stems from being pushed into you know I've always felt like I didn't fit in, right? And I think part of it is because I skipped a grade, and even though I was as tall as the other kids, I developed the same rate as other people. I was always about a year and a half or 2 years behind everyone else in terms of my age, and so social emotional development wasn't exactly where it maybe needed to be. But I looked just like all the other kids, and
Oh,
I was always trying to kind of hide that I was younger because I wanted to just fit in, and I never really felt like I fit. But so yeah, so 16, college.
wow.
I love to learn. I've always loved to learn. I think you already mentioned my favorite thing to do is read and learn. So I went to Florida State University, um, and ended up being a teen mom. I was pregnant at 17, and I had my first son when I was 18, and
Wow.
that was a very interesting situation.
Uh, yeah, I can
um,
imagine.
yeah. Um, but I had really supportive parents. I'm an only child, so I don't have brothers and sisters, but I have very supportive aunts and uncles and cousins, and they were not going to let me give up. Right, that just
Wow.
because I was young and unwed and had a child and I was in college, they're like, so you're finishing college, right? So I did have support with that.
Wow.
The unfortunate part was that my son's father chose not to be part of his life, or he was very intermittently involved and was not very kind to us. So, that wasn't a good thing. That was pretty rough. Um, but I persevered. I went on, I got a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, a doctorate. I taught middle school special education. And then I got a master's degree in information studies, library science, and then a PhD in the same thing. And I'm now doing just that. I'm a professor interestingly enough, right now I'm in Florida, but I work for the University of Maryland. I teach online at the University of Maryland.
Wow.
And
What do you teach?
so it's called the College of Information Studies. My focus is on school librarianship, and then also a lot about equity, diversity, and inclusion, and how we make sure that information providers, librarians, archivists, museum people, how they make sure that information is accessible to everybody, not just the people who are, kind of traditionally able to access that information, but to make sure that everyone, whether they're homeless, whether they have transportation to one of these institutions, how do we make sure that everyone gets the information that they need? That's something that's really important to me, is inclusion, that people know that they're valued, and that we want them around, right? So
Yeah, it's so interesting that you're saying that word. I was just speaking to a woman today, Lakeisha, I think was her name,
mhm.
who runs a consulting company. And she was talking about diversity and inclusion also, just like
Mhm.
an hour ago.
Wow.
Can you expand a little bit more, for me being so naive, as to what that means within the African American culture?
Sure. Which part? Like the diversity part, the equity part? What do you?
Inclusive.
Yes, specific. Good. I'm glad, because you'll hear people say like DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, or I specifically and purposely use EDI. I put the equity first, because so equity and equality often get mixed up. Equity is giving people what they need, right? And so your needs are different than mine.
I'm going to
And
write this down. Hang on a second, girl.
sure,
I'm
yeah.
learning some shit today. Okay, wait. Equity. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was saying that equity and equality often get mixed up. Equality is where everybody gets the same thing, right? No matter what. And I'll just give a really quick example. You'll probably see at some point, if you ever go look up equity and equality and what the difference is, you'll see an image of three people are trying to watch a softball game, and there's a fence up in front of them. And so every single one of those three people gets the same size box to stand on, with the intent that it will allow them to be able to see over that fence. The thing is that one of those people is already like 6 feet tall. One of them is about 5 feet tall, and one of them is, in a wheelchair, right? So equality means that they all will get the exact same size box. So that means the person who was 6 feet tall, who didn't even need the box in the first place, they get on the box, they can see even better. The person who was 5 feet might be able to peer over that fence. The person who's in the wheelchair can't even get on the box anyway. So yeah, they got the same thing, but it didn't help. Didn't help two of
Wow.
those people.
Okay.
Equity means that you give people what they need. So in that same scenario, that means the person who's 6 feet tall and didn't even need the box, they don't get a box. I mean, it's not saying you don't deserve this box. It just means you didn't need it. The person next to you actually needed two, because their height limited them or stopped them from being able to see this game. And then the third person would maybe get three boxes and someone to help them get on it, because they were on a wheelchair and they would, might not have been able to see over the fence no matter what. And then to go a step beyond that is justice, which is what I'm very interested in, which is, how about we tear down that fence? Did it need to be there in the first place?
Wow.
Yeah.
Love
So
that.
yeah, that's
That
what my focus is making sure that people get what they need. And so when you're talking about, in the African American community, um, you know, there's lots of political discussions that I do not get into
yeah.
about, affirmative action and things like that. I look at it like, if people need something that you don't need, is it really hurting you to say, yeah, give that person what they need to be able to be successful? I'm going to be successful anyway. So I don't need to have those exact same, I don't want to say, I guess I'll say advantages that this other person, this other group might need, because I was going to be okay anyway.
Yeah.
It's not stopping me from being able to be successful.
Beautiful. And then what about the word inclusive?
Inclusive means making sure that people feel like they actually belong. They belong in a place and that they're wanted in a place, that they're not being looked at like someone to be observed, to be researched, right? That there's someone who people can find value in what they bring to a conversation or in what they bring to a situation or an organization.
Absolutely love that. Totally learned something new today. I appreciate that.
I'm glad. Thank you.
Yes.
I love this stuff. I love it.
I I want to ask you, in your journey, from beginning to end, from second grade till now, I'm sure that there's been an array of, challenges and struggles that you've been through. Do you mind sharing with us one of the challenges that you've been through and what you learned from that challenge?
Absolutely. Yeah. Hang on one second. Having issues all of a sudden, of course, because I'm, live with you. All of a sudden, I have to clear my throat. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
So, what I want to kind of talk about, something that for a long time I could not discuss because I was ashamed. And as I realized how many other people struggled with the same thing, but also had no one to talk to because other folks were ashamed too, I said, you know what? I'm just going to start talking about it. So that's what I'm going to do. So I want to talk about my struggles with mental health issues.
Love it.
Um, you mentioned a second ago, how does like the word inclusive or inclusivity impact the African American community? I will say that, obviously mental health issues impact people from across cultures, across races, across socioeconomic status. But my experience as an African American woman is that in the Black community, you don't talk about it. You don't admit to having any kind of a concern with mental health. Things are getting better now, but when I experienced my concerns, it was just you do not talk about it. You, quite frankly, you don't even admit it or acknowledge it to yourself. So, um, I was diagnosed. I'm going to say it was like the early 2000s. I was diagnosed with clinical depression and also anxiety. And it took a long time for me to even get diagnosed because, well, for one, I didn't know what was happening to me. I just I went from almost feeling like I was just normal one day, and over a course of about a week, I just got worse and worse, and just feeling like I was in the dark, literally in the dark.
Hmm.
I could not stop these spiraling, circling thoughts about how awful life was, that I was never going to be able to succeed. I was not a good enough person. I'm certain that all of this stemmed from guilt. I mentioned about being a single mom. I'm also a Christian woman. And so, the way that I grew up in the church, you don't get pregnant unless you're married. And so I carried this guilt with me about how I had let my family down. I had let God down. I was just not good enough. I was never going to be good enough. I wasn't a good enough mom. I would never learn to be a good mom. I didn't deserve good things, and just I couldn't stop those thoughts. Now, at the time, my first son, was probably about, I'm going to say 6 or 7, maybe 8. Um, and I'm sad to, think about it now, but at my lowest point, I was not getting out of the bed. I'm not 100% sure how he ate because I don't recall making breakfast, lunch, or dinner. I do know I got him to school. I remember that. I don't remember being able to. I know that I couldn't drag myself out of bed to do anything but use the bathroom and go right back to the bed.
Wow.
It was awful. And like I said, I didn't even know it was happening to me. I didn't even realize that I wasn't leaving the bed until a friend, said to me, you haven't left this room for like about a week and a half, right? And I didn't know. I honestly didn't know. All I wanted to do was sleep. My brain hurt because I couldn't stop the spiraling thoughts. I remember at one point feeling so low that all I could think was the only way that this ends is if I die. So it wasn't that I really wanted to kill myself. It was that I was convinced that I would never not feel that way. And so the only thing to do was to be done with life. There was just no way. I started asking God, just please take me in my sleep. And I would wake up the next morning and be so angry that I was awake. It was really difficult. And I just knew something was wrong. I just didn't know what it was. Honestly, at that point, I was in a PhD program and I'd heard the word depression, but I had applied it to other people because in my mind, Black people didn't get depressed. We just dealt with it. We just kept on going. Also, I felt like I didn't have the luxury of being depressed because I was a mom and I needed to make sure that my son, didn't have a crazy mom. In my mind, I was crazy.
Yeah.
But thankfully, that same friend just kept, encouraging me. You have campus resources. You go to Florida State University. There's resources. Why don't you go to the Student Health Center? And it took a while for me to finally do it, but I did. I finally went, and that's when I started to learn so much about myself and about what depression actually is, and that it's treatable. And it doesn't mean that you're defective or that you're crazy. It means that just like with any other body part, something needs to be corrected. Something needs to be worked on and concentrated on.
Yeah. For those that are listening live right now, I'm going to ask this question because I'm assuming they're resonating with your story. Is this a counselor? Where does one go when they're in college to get this help? The nurse? Like, I don't even know how that works.
Well, I guess every campus is different. At Florida State University, and I do know that where my university now, University of Maryland, there is not only just a student health center, there's also a specific area that focuses on mental health services, right? So I'm fairly certain that, say, in college, most campuses are going to have mental health services specifically for students to access.
Wow.
The issue, and this is across the board, whether it's on campus or whether it's a private practice, there's so much need and not enough providers. So what often happens is that once a person finally is able to say, I need help, and they can get themselves in, there may be a several week long to a several month long waiting period before you can even see a provider. That's the really hard part. So when a person is really low, sometimes it's just not even possible for them to get in to see someone.
Yeah. What would you suggest in that case?
To keep asking for help, to go back every day or call every day and say, do you happen to have a cancellation? Can you please give me some referrals to somewhere else that I can call? Be honest with friends and family who you trust and say, I need to see someone. I'm not okay. Can you help me? And I can promise you, your friends and your family will get on the phone and just start making random phone calls to places that offer mental health services, and you'll be able to get in at some point. There's also now, thankfully, when I was going through this wasn't an option, but now there are online services where you should be able to get in within a matter of days, if not the same day. And it's virtual. You can do it from the comfort of your home or your car. And that it's just key to get somebody to start talking with you to get you on a plan to getting better.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for mentioning that. That's a really actually good suggestion with that. I want to ask, I had I really resonated with you when you said you didn't feel like you had a right to be depressed because you were a single mom and you had to do all of the things. And we, in my case, not to project my story onto you, but I got pregnant. So that's my fault. So I don't have a right to complain about anything because I shouldn't have been doing that. So I felt the same, very similar feelings as you felt that created a lot of emotion inside of me of hearing you say that. I never got to a point where I was where you were because of those thoughts. Like I just couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
So for individuals like me who are feeling all the same things, like are just like getting it, they're like, this girl is telling my story, but they're not in bed.
Mm-hmm.
What is that like? Can you describe the thoughts, the feelings, the environment, the vibrations that are happening to allow somebody to realize, whoa, I'm depressed and I need to take a step towards communicating that to somebody? Like, what does that feel like?
It's scary, Sabrina. At first, for me, it felt, I, for a while, each day I thought, if I can just get through today, I'll be okay tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right. And so
Yeah.
well, I'd sleep. Honestly, I was sleeping probably 20 something hours a day. So I would sleep and I would say, it's just because depression is tired. I experienced it as being very tiring, I
Yeah.
mean, exhausting and painful. Literally painful. Like the way I described it is that my brain hurt. It wasn't a headache. It really felt like my brain hurt.
Wow.
And the simplest tasks were exhausting. Like literally, my mom knew something wasn't right. And again, she did not even attribute it to depression. It was, even after I was diagnosed, she couldn't really wrap her mind around that. It was kind of like, no, just you're down and some things have happened and that's understandable. You just need to pray and it'll be okay. And then, so that was it. That was the best advice that she knew to give me.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that kind of contributed to making it a little bit worse because then in my mind, I twisted that into, oh, wow, I'm so awful that God has left me.
Yeah. I totally
Right.
get that. Yep.
But so, yeah, so it was like brain ache. Um, I could not stop thinking negative thoughts. It seemed as though everything positive that had ever happened to me or that I ever knew to think about was inaccessible. I couldn't find those memories. I remember thinking, okay, I'll try to find a comedian. Maybe that'll help if I start laughing. And I remember it was the strangest feeling. I found a comedy show and I heard these jokes and they were hilarious and I could not laugh. Like I
Wow.
mentally knew that what was said was funny. I
Yes.
couldn't laugh. It was the weirdest thing. But what caused me to really realize, okay, I do have to listen to my friend that's saying you need to go and see someone. I went past just being like, okay, yeah, I just need to not wake up in the morning to starting to formulate a plan for how I was going to die.
Ooh.
And I was rationalizing it. I rationalized, okay, well, I can't do certain things. It's like I can't have my son find me like this. That would be too traumatic for him. So even in that, I was still at least thinking my kid has to be okay, right? Even
Yeah.
again, it's a warped rationality because my kid would not be okay if I weren't around anymore.
Yeah.
But I didn't want him to find me, right? So I had rationalized that I was going to ask someone to take me to the store. And while we were on the highway, I was going to just open the door and fall out the car, let the cars
Wow.
roll over me. And that
Totally.
scared me.
Yeah.
That when I had that thought, it scared me. And I realized that was that moment of clarity where it clicked that this is not normal, Renee. This is not okay for you to keep thinking about. And that's what propelled me into the mental health services at Florida State's uh, Student Health Center.
Great. That's a great visual with that. And I can totally relate to all of that. I've had those same exact feelings. So exactly, if you're having thoughts that are not healthy towards yourself or anyone around you, that's a really good clue that you need to seek guidance from somewhere. I'm assuming, the counseling or the therapy. What do you call it with the college? What did you?
Both. I've called it therapy and counseling.
Okay.
So I did like talk therapy, and then eventually I did have psychiatric services where I actually had medication.
Beautiful. Okay. Um, so I want to talk a little bit about, the importance of personal development, the importance of personal growth. And I'm assuming that within that, ball of things that you were doing at that point in your life, that a lot of that was intertwined in that. I want to ask you, through your own personal journey and recommendation, I guess, to the listeners right now, what would you say is the importance of, whether you're going through a mental issue or an emotional issue or not, what do you think, or where would you put the importance of learning more about, personal development, personal growth, mental and emotional health?
It's essential. So you know how people will often say, "Hey, new parents, kids don't come with a manual. You got to kind of figure it out."
Yeah.
Well, the same is true about us. We don't come with a manual that says, "Here's the story of you. Here's what you need to do for your proper care and feeding." Right? We
Yep.
don't get that, and I think that people in general and women specifically do not take the time to learn who we are. We don't take the time to accept that the person that we were 10 years ago is likely not the person that we are now, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And that we are constantly going to be in a process of learning more and understanding more about who we are, how we think, how we tick, why we react to things the way that we do. So I I cannot stress enough how important it is to take the time to constantly be learning about yourself, even if it's just little things along the way. It doesn't have to be these major aha moments about yourself, but it's
Yeah.
important to be open to, I still got to learn me. I'm going to be learning me for the rest of my life. And
Yeah.
that's actually really beautiful.
Yeah. How much time do you think you put into, learning about yourself? Is this a daily, a weekly, a monthly, a yearly? What's your personal experience with that?
I'm going to say that it's been a number of years that I've been, kind of, I call it doing the work, right? So doing um, the mental health work that was really important at first. So I did years of mental health therapy, counseling. I have been on medication to make sure. So one of the promises I made to myself after I've had two major depressive episodes. The first one was not as horrible. The one I was describing to you was the second one, actually. And I promised myself that I was never going to allow myself to be that low again. That was terrifying. And quite frankly, I don't deserve it. I don't deserve to be that low. And I said, I will never let that happen again. So it became really important to me to recognize what causes me to start going down those not so great paths of thinking, the stinking thinking, right?
Yes.
And and when I'm, again, I mentioned I'm prone to anxiety as well, so noticing what causes me to be anxious, being honest about what's happening to me at certain times when I have to say, you know what, I know I promised you I was going to go somewhere or do so. I can't do it. It's causing me too much stress, and I can't do it, right? And being okay with that. But so yes, I would say that I devote some part of my day to kind of check in with myself, to see, how are you feeling about yourself? Are you talking to yourself in kind ways? We say things to ourselves that we would never dream of saying to other people. I was really good at that at one point in my life, saying the most ugly things to myself.
Mhm.
And now when I find myself going down those paths, I'm like, wait a minute, that's not true. Don't say that. That's not true about you. And I switched the thought, right? I've gotten good at it because I've done the work, and I'm going to always do the work. I have a life coach, and that helps to keep me really focused on thinking about, what do I have the ability to control, and what things can I let go and just say, you know what? I did not create that situation. I will not take responsibility for it. I'm not going to allow myself to feel guilt about it. Um, and I'm just going to move on.
Absolutely. Great advice. Great advice, 100%. You've got an inspiring story, darling. I love that.
That is so kind. Thank you.
I love that. Well said. I want to ask, one of the biggest issues that I see, I want to say with clients, but it's not even. It's everybody. It's all the people in general. When we're in a dark spot, sometimes it can be overwhelming trying to think about how to get from the darkness to the light, how to like actually pull yourself out of your story. Listening to you now, if somebody is feeling down, feeling depressed, feeling the anxiety, just in a not good spot, they might hear your story and they might be like, cool, Renee, cool. I'll go see a therapist, but I don't even what, there's no way. Like, there's no way that me talking about this is really going to propel me forward where I need to be in my life. And with that, which I get it, I want to ask your personal experience with steps that you took, maybe like your first 1, 2, 3 that you can recall of things that you've done when you're in the middle of it, in the middle of the funk, and you need to take yourself out and pull yourself out. What are like the top 1, 2, 3 things that you can think of that you do to kind of start moving towards a better direction?
Oh, it's a hard one. I don't know if I'll have 3. I think I have.
That's fine.
I think I have one major thing, and that's okay. So this is something I wish I had either learned or perhaps embraced. I think someone tried to tell me this years ago, and I just couldn't get it. And it's been recently, in the last, I would say, 5-ish years, where I've been able to embrace this idea of what is fact and what is truth, because there's a difference. And so at the fact level, I may be feeling like crap today. But at the truth level, I don't have to. Like, so I can say, this has been a really bad day. I got into a car accident. My kids are misbehaving. I burned dinner, right? But at the truth level, I'm actually a good cook. I am a good mom, and I'll be able to get that car fixed, right? So it's not this idea of just turn everything into a positive. But no, turn everything into what is the truth. The truth is, I was sent here with a purpose. And while I might not know exactly what the purpose is, I can't necessarily give an elevator pitch on what my actual purpose is. The truth is that I have a purpose, and I am moving towards it a little bit more every single day. And that's something that I just really, I hope that people can embrace, that yes, there's facts, they're out there, but you have to look beyond those into what is the truth about the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. That's bringing me to tears. I love it. Thank you so much for that. I want to pull this up. I don't know if I quite understand it. Can you read this? I don't know if I'm understanding it.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I got the thing that's on the screen.
Yeah.
It's my first time doing this.
That's okay. That's okay.
Okay. I got a testimony already. I was about to get discouraged a few minutes ago in my ongoing project, but your story says, Judith, you can, if Renee made it huge today. So and you want me to comment on that? That's what you're saying?
Sure. Yeah.
So I'm saying, my
talking
interpretation
to you, girl.
Yes, my interpretation is that you were feeling discouraged, and now you're feeling like you can do it, because you can. Yes. You absolutely can. So so that's where it is. The fact is that you were feeling discouraged. The truth is that whatever it is that has been put in your heart to be able to do, you're going to be able to do that.
I love it.
You can do it.
I love it.
So please do not give up. And then Sabrina, you said something to me yesterday in our real quick conversation, when you said, if I have an idea about something, don't walk, run towards it. So I want to say to Judith, run towards that, whatever that thing is in your heart, now that you're not feeling discouraged, that you know that discouragement, yeah, that was at the level of fact, but the truth is you can do it. Run over there and do it, whatever it was, do it, go, start, do something, do some piece of it so that you can really get some trajectory and know that you can do it. You got it. You got this.
Absolutely. That was fantastic. Thank you so much. Judith says thank you.
Absolutely.
What is the number one lesson that you've learned about life?
Oh, wow. Okay. Number one lesson is that everything happens the way it's supposed to, even if we don't understand why in the moment. So while, obviously it would not have been my intent to be 17 and pregnant with a man who was not interested in me or his child. That would never have been something I wanted. I wouldn't have written that part of my story for myself. I wouldn't have chosen to go through depression. I wouldn't have chosen to have anxiety attacks. They happened because they were supposed to, because I needed to be able to go through those things and then help someone else later on. Or when I face other challenges, be able to look back and say, but you've gone through all that other stuff. So guess what? You can manage this too. Absolutely. Right. So that's what I have learned, that everything in life, the good and the bad, happens the way it's supposed to. And it's to make us better. It's all for our good.
Yeah. Absolutely. What's your oldest's name, by the way? We keep talking about him.
Yes. So my husband and I have 5 kids, and so we don't really do like the halves and the steps and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I say I have my bios and my bonuses. So my oldest, I'm going to go from the oldest to the youngest. So my oldest, that's my bonus kid, is Macaulay, and he's 29. And then my oldest bio is Brandon, and he is 28.
This is the one we keep talking about, Brandon.
Yes.
Okay.
And then my oldest bonus daughter is Emma, and she just turned 27. And then get this gap. We have our daughter Naomi, who is 9.
Wow.
And then Jesse, who is 8. So we started all over, and we are so happy. We're kind of crazy, but we're so happy.
I absolutely love that. Look at Dane. Brandon says you're the best mom of all time.
Oh, that is awesome.
I love that. Brandon's a good kid.
He is.
I love that. One of the issues that I dealt with a lot growing up was beliefs that were given to me that I didn't ask for. Mm-hmm. And not in a malicious way. Society, your environment, your parents, religion, friends, culture, many times ingrain us with a thought process that isn't always serving us. And I'd like to ask, through your journey, mm-hmm. Have you had any limiting beliefs that have hindered you growing up? And out of them, what's one that you've turned around and that you believe now?
Wow, Sabrina, there's so many. I will say, religion messes a lot of people up.
Yeah,
it does. I've said several times, and I'm going to keep saying it. I mean, I am a Christ follower. I believe in God. The whole, you got to go to church or you're not a good person, or, you have to show your faith in a certain way, or you're not doing it right. That's kind of how I was raised. And again, I say over and over again, my parents, the people that I went to church with, my family, they did the best they knew how, right? Yeah. They could only give me what they had.
Yeah.
But in some ways it was damaging. And in some ways, it caused me to live a very fearful life that caused me to be paralyzed.
Yeah.
And I do believe, I'm not going to say that I believe religion caused me to have a depression or to have depression, because a lot of that is biological and chemical. But I believe that I didn't develop the type of strength that I needed, emotionally and mentally, to be able to see situations as they were and not kind of slide into it all the guilt, because a lot of guilt comes in religion. It's a lot of guilt, and I learned to live a guilty life. Everything I did, I felt guilty about. I'll give you a really weird example. Even I think I've lived with a guilty conscience kind of thing until I was in my probably like mid 30s. Wow. And I'm not anymore. Now I don't remember my age. I'm 47 now. And I would say that I really didn't start to really just kind of shed that fear until I met my husband 12 years ago. Right. So the fear factor is really serious. Right. And a lot of people suffer from it. And the paralysis that comes along with that, it can just be, it's awful. It's awful. And I am glad to be able to not have that level of fear anymore. It's my first instinct though. But anyway, so back to the story I was going to tell you. I once, I missed the flight because the flight that I came in on was late. Was not my fault. But I missed the flight, the connecting flight, and was in tears because in my mind, I had done something wrong. And the people that were expecting me to be on the flight were going to be let down because I wasn't there. And, now I look back at that and I think, that was just weird. Are you also a narcissist? But no, it really was that in my mind, you're supposed to do everything right. And so the right thing to do was to get on that plane. Yeah. And I didn't. And so I'm a bad person now. So, I mean, that's how the mind can trick you. Things even outside your control become your fault now, right? So that's that whole thing. I grew up with a lot of fear instilled in me that I just couldn't drop. So no, I no longer really have that limiting belief that, that not everything should provoke fear or invoke fear, excuse me. So now I've switched that into the fear. And so the fear that I had was really a fear of failure. That's what it was. And what I've learned now is that there really isn't failure. There's feedback, right? When things happen that are different than what we were expecting or contrary to what we, thought we wanted, it is feedback. We choose to assign meanings and feelings to certain situations and certain outcomes of those situations. And we can also choose to not assign any meaning. We can look at things that happen and say, oh, wow, that happened. I wasn't expecting that to happen. What should I be learning from this? And then move on. Yeah. We don't have to stay stuck in that. This didn't work out. I'm a bad person. I've got to do something different. I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. We don't have to do that. Yeah. We have the absolute ability. And I believe that we should be looking at situations like, okay, I need to figure out what I'm supposed to learn from that. And then I can apply that in a different situation. I can also share the situation and share the outcome with someone else.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well said. Definitely. I want to ask what you do. Obviously we've got an audience here hanging out with us. They're vibing with you. They're picking up everything you're putting down. But I'd like to ask, what you do, volunteer work for a job, businesses that you'd like to share with us.
Sure. Well, you know that I'm a professor, so that's something my day job, right? Mm-hmm. And I am really, really pleased that I am in business with my husband. So we own an insurance agency. It's called Hill Insurance Service. And he does all the work. I'll be honest with you. He does all the work. I just, come by and say, hey, everything going okay? Okay, good. We're good, right? But I feel so blessed because I was gifted with this amazing man who has the same belief system as I do.
Wow.
And he really is committed to helping other people be their best selves, which is something that's really important to me. Like, that's what I feel like my mission on earth is to help people figure out how to be their best selves. And so through, selling insurance, we do life and health insurance. We get a chance to do that. We get a chance to talk with people who are not sure what they should do. They may be having health issues. They may not think that they can afford really good medical services, and we help them get that. And that is really fulfilling to know that we can help people. We're starting a new business that has, as yet, does not have a name, but it's coming. But it's also helping people be their best selves. It's about metabolic testing, and no matter what age, no matter your gender, no matter your current physical situation, the metabolic testing will help you to figure out what's the best plan to get you to optimal.
Wow.
So yeah,
Very
that's what
cool.
we do.
Very
Yeah.
cool. That's awesome. Do any of your kids help out with any of that stuff? Or are they off on their own journey?
So the older kids, they give us lots of encouragement and support. They just don't want to be bothered, right?
Okay.
Which is, you know what, though? You raise your kids for other people in other places.
Yes.
So they're out doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yes.
They are living their lives. But I have to be honest with you, it makes me feel so good to know that all of our kids are proud of us. Like, I don't know if people think about if their kids are proud of them. Our kids are proud of us. And it just feels so good.
That's fantastic.
It does.
That's fantastic. Very cool. What does success mean to you?
Success means freedom. It means being free, whatever freedom looks like to you, right? So for me, freedom means being able to be able to make a living, and it's not location dependent. That's really important to me, to be able to kind of decide my own schedule, to be able to do the things that really matter to me when I want to do them. Success also means getting to be who you are and shedding your cares and concerns about what other people think. I mean, yes, I care if people think I am of good character. That's important to me. Mm-hmm. But, years ago, I would be worried about, oh, gosh, does somebody think I'm pretty enough or smart enough? Or did I have the right clothes? Is somebody going to laugh at the kind of car I'm driving? Is somebody going to criticize me the way that I mother? And I don't care about that stuff anymore. It doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is, what have I done in service to someone else? Yeah. That's freedom to me.
It's great. I want to give a shout out real fast to those that are hanging out with us live. We so appreciate you being here, supporting us, listening in on Renee's journey and story here. For those of you joining us a little later and you're watching us on the replay, please make sure you hashtag replay so that we know that you were here, we know that you were listening, and we can send you some love. Renee, I would like to kind of close up with some advice. Obviously, we have an audience here listening in, enjoying your story, pulling inspiration from you. If we have a female on the line right now who is struggling with being her authentic self, knowing who she actually is, pulling back all the limiting beliefs, pulling back all of the other people's opinions about what she's supposed to be doing with her life, but struggling to get to that point, what would be some advice you'd give to her?
I would say, get into the habit of asking yourself every day, whenever you come up to a situation that's challenging or confusing, ask yourself, what would I love? Not what can I tolerate? Not what am I supposed to do? Not what does somebody expect me to do? What would I love?
Oh, that's good.
Visualize that, and then start moving towards that thing, whatever that feeling is that says, I would love this outcome. It doesn't matter how strange or wild it is. Mm-hmm. If you would love it, it's been put in your heart for a reason. Move towards that. Yes. That will help you to really tap into, who am I really because I'm thinking about what would I love? What lights me up?
Yes, that's awesome. That actually reminds me, one of the first people that I started listening to when I started coming into my power and started to realize that I no longer wanted to be a victim, I fell into Joe Osteen,
Mm-hmm.
who runs a huge church in Texas, actually. But I no longer follow him anymore. My beliefs have changed a little bit since then, but he was like one of the first people that really got me into, personal power and being who I am and authentically myself. And he said just that in one of his seminars. I'll never forget it. He said, if you have something that's in your heart, doesn't matter what it is, but if it's in your heart, if you are imagining it and thinking it and feeling it, it's meant for you.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
I
Very
agree
cool.
with that.
Very cool. Well, I thank you so much, Renee, for being here, for hanging out, for stepping up to the plate on such last notice. You're awesome. This was incredibly emotional for me. And I think a lot of it is because right off the bat, you freaking hit my heartstring with your story matching up with my story somewhat.
Mm-hmm.
You're a little bit younger than me, which is why I think the emotion, because I just can't even imagine. But I thank you for being here and for taking the time. Do you have any closing thoughts before I close up here with everybody?
No, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate having the chance to talk with you. And again, I'm blown away by what you've created and what you're continuing to create. And I'm so glad to have met you. And I'm going to, of course, now be part of the community because this is what I need.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for everything. I so appreciate you. I appreciate those that are watching here live. Like I said, if you're watching on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay in the comments so that we know that you were here and you were listening. Thank you so much for joining us here on Her Version and hanging out with us. I never know, what emotions are going to come up for me. And when an overwhelming emotion of goodness happens, sometimes I can't help myself. So I also want to thank you, Renee, for holding space for me. I appreciate you.
Thank you. This is wonderful.
This community is expanding every single day and is filled with females who are striving to do better than they did yesterday. For those of you that are new to this podcast, make sure you like content like that, and you like content like this, make sure you subscribe. If you have a story to share, make sure you reach out to me personally or at herversion.life. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire others. Do something awesome today.